Hello and welcome to the Round So Far, brought to you by Amy for round 24, our final show of the regular season before we launch into all of the finals action forensically. I'm Xander McGuire and I'm joined by Kate McCarthy as always. Let's go to the big story of this round, which has been the tight wins and the big swings that happened on Friday night, which have had massive ramifications across the league, Kate.
Yeah, well, we start with the first of the double headers and Collingwood getting over the line by 6 points. It was a tight tussle that really they needed to win, obviously, to keep their top four hopes alive. They just got the job done, and then the huge emotional victory over at the Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide getting it done for both Ken Hinkley and Travis Boak in a 4-point victory at the Adelaide Oval, which really does put the Suns out of that contention for a top four finish now, Xander.
Yeah, incredible night on Friday, and we've got an updated model of the ladder. Of course, this will all be thrown out the door in about 24 hours' time. But here's what we know right now. The Adelaide Crows will finish on top of the ladder. They'll host a home final at the Adelaide Oval probably on Thursday or Friday night. Geelong are locked into second, so they'll both have home qualifying finals. The Cats likely to be at GMHBA Stadium. It's probable that the Crows will host the Pies in Adelaide, but it's those positions 3 to 5, Kate, where anything could happen.
Yeah, all the talk for tomorrow has been about this elimination final between Fremantle and the Bulldogs, but the game between the Lions and the Hawks will actually change the makeup of the top four and the bottom four more so than that other fixture. So you can see there the Lions all the way from 3rd to 7th. So 3rd if they get the victory, all the way down to 7th if Hawthorn end up winning that game. Same with Hawthorn, they can finish as high as 3rd or slide all the way down to 8. And then we go obviously to the Giants, probably most probable around that 6th position for them to finish, obviously barring a huge victory and making up a few percentage points there. And then you've got Fremantle and the Bulldogs, and basically the loser of that one is out, Xander, and the Suns, who will have to wait till Wednesday to know where they're ending up in the makeup of the top 8.
Fascinating. So Collingwood supporters need Hawthorn to win by, I think, under 2 goals, and that'll keep them in 3rd spot, keeps them in Melbourne. A fascinating watch, and I think everyone in the country will be glued to their TV.
Is that the
Sunday
team you're
afternoon.
most interested in,
I'm just putting it, well, there's just a lot to play out there. That's all I'm saying, Kate. Speaking of the Pies, because everyone wants to talk about them and hear about them, let's go to their 4th quarter, because all looked lost when the D's were 14 points up halfway through at a game-high lead. And then for the first time in probably the last 2 months, that Collingwood spark came back.
Yeah, it did, and they had to throw some things around. They did it the hard way. Melbourne made them work really hard, and this kick here from Roan Steele, it's been their ball use inside forward 50 that's been a little bit of a problem, particularly last week, but that there just gives McStay an opportunity. That's a really composed kick inside forward 50.
Third gamer.
The long high kicks that are going in were really starting to cost them. And then Pendlebury, he went back for the last quarter, had some really big moments in those last quarters where there was a whole lot on the line, and just big efforts like this. Cameron, it was a finals-like feel, which was a really good test for the Pies. Here, Maynard, this composure, knowing that basically he needs to take possession here, get himself out of trouble, one touch, handball away, and they end up doing just the right amount to get over the line in this game. But it was a really exciting game, probably one that going into it you thought could be a little bit of a blowout, but Melbourne, they pushed the Pies all the way to the final siren.
Now, those moments probably give you confidence as a Collingwood supporter and confidence in Collingwood as a footy fan, but they've won 2 of their last 7, Kate. Is that enough, what you saw there on Friday night, to think that they could be a genuine contender?
I think the thing that was most promising is that when they needed to, they were able to get their game going. In the second quarter, they turned more into the Collingwood corridor team that we know, and that's when they're predictable to each other. But you've got to give some credit to Melbourne. Petrarca, Oliver, really stood up in that game. They dominated around clearance and made Collingwood work. And yes, there's some positives to come out of it from a Melbourne side of things, but you've also got to look at the 4th quarter and their ability to turn things around Collingwood and get the job done ultimately.
Speaking of spark for the Pies, they've lost a lot of it with Bobby Hill out of the side for the latter stages of this season, but Jordan De Goey's return and the management of him towards finals has been nothing short of perfect, and it looks like he's ready to explode, Kate.
Yeah, he was remarkable last night. I thought he was the best player on the ground. 26 disposals, 8 score involvements, 6 clearances, and it was his clearance work that was the most evident. Craig McRae said post-game he's a mile ahead of where he thought he would be at this time, coming off that Achilles injury, obviously his 4th game back since then. and he said he's back to beast mode around clearance, and that is exactly what we saw, beast mode from Jordan De Goey. And it's the method in which you've got players that win clearance, Xander, but then you've got players like Jordan De Goey who burst out of clearance and will win it and then make the right decision ahead of the footy, and that's what we saw from Jordan De Goey, and that's what we do see when he's at his best.
Now, Jordan De Goey's back at peak fitness, but there's a few that aren't, and that's headlined by Jeremy Howe. He's been subbed out in his last 4 games for the Pies after before he did the groin against Gold Coast, but he did the groin in round 18. He returned, was knocked out in the first minute against the Hawks, and he's done the groin again. He was sent for scans on Saturday morning, and the preliminary results out of Collingwood HQ are not good. It looks like he'll miss at least 3 weeks, which would rule him out until a prospective preliminary final if the Pies get there, and without him, who knows if they'll go that far. He said he heard a pop when it happened at the time, which is alarm bells for any physios or medicos inside the club, and it looks like it's not just a routine 1 to 2 week strain. So hopefully, he can get back as soon as possible, but he's a massive loss for that defence, given how they've shaped up without him there. Beau McCreary also sent for a scan. He had his foot stepped on and looked to struggle a lot in that last quarter. When he had the ball, he was explosive, but when he didn't, he was limping around the park. A scan on him, a wait and see, but hopefully that's something he can push through. And Brody Myercheck appears to maybe just have a minor sprain in his wrist, which he sustained while tackling Clayton Oliver in the first quarter, but he managed to play through with some painkillers, and that's something they'll probably be able to do throughout September. So a good result there. To Melbourne. Still no coach, and Max Gawn was lamenting that fact and what it's been like for them over the last 3 weeks without a permanent person in the chair. It gives them a chance now to regroup, make a decision. Paul Guerra, the incoming CEO, said that they're looking to make that call before grand final week and that they're on the cusp of finalising a short list of 6 to 8. But Kate, finally, things are looking to take shape at the Ds.
Yeah, and I'm right in saying that they're really hopeful of getting this wrapped up before trade period is to begin. Absolutely. So that the new coach can come in and have full control of that list and be able to pull the trigger or make decisions leading into trade period as well. 14
guys out of contract for Melbourne right now, and the biggest questions around the guys that do have contracts. Clayton Oliver till 2030, Christian Petrarca till 2029, and even guys like Stephen May and Jake Lever who were contracted until next year. You don't know where they're going to end up. There's lots of other interest. And again, it's the changing of the guard at the Ds. So much to unpack there over the coming weeks. But all things look to be heading in the right direction. Let's go to Adelaide Oval, where the Port fairy tale, well, it came true for Ken and it came true for Travis Boak. What a win it was against the Gold Coast Suns. Can you believe it? Just limping across the line there in, again, like I said, a true fairy tale. And it was really led by 2 of their key players, Zach Butters and Connor Rozee, who have been inextricably linked to Ken throughout his whole career. Yeah, well, Port Adelaide, they were just phenomenal on Friday night. The team that you probably least want to come up against when there is an emotional storyline going on in the background is Port Adelaide. And I just had a feeling coming into this match that they would make it really tough for the Gold Coast Suns. They ended up getting the job done, and these two just waxed lyrical through the middle of the ground. 35, 34 disposals apiece, a mountain of score involvements, clearances, tackles. They really rolled up the sleeves. They were really good on the outside, but they got the job done on the inside as well and was nothing but impressed. And then Mitch Georgiades as well, 15 disposals, 6 marks and 4 goals to go with it. And you just felt like it was an emotional victory for them. They were going to put it all on the line for both Ken Hinkley and Travis Boak. And you feel happy for those 2 players that they were able to get the job done ultimately. And Zach Butters telling reporters in the rooms post-match he has no plans to be anywhere but Port Adelaide in 2026. But as we sort of alluded to, it's a different side that was out there. It's an inexperienced side. It's a side that you wouldn't expect to knock off a team that up until last night was favoured to be in the top 4, only 12 players from the prelim in 2024. And Ken, much like everyone in the AFL community, maybe he wasn't expecting that sort of result.
I didn't think we had any chance.
Thanks,
I can say that now. Like, I'm sitting there going, shit, I've got 6 first years in this team. Got a warrior old fella crippled going around. I've got a young kid Ram playing at full back on King. And, I've got a Lear who's got a rolled ankle and a busted medial ligament and hanging on. And we won. Tomorrow morning, I'm not the coach, but tonight I'm still the coach. And I'm a coach who's the proudest coach the world has ever seen tonight. I need a spell. I need to have a rest and, normally 2 or 3 weeks and I can start to think a bit clearer. But right now, how can I think about anything else? I'm in love with the Port Adelaide Footy Club.
That's Ken Hinckley speaking at the end there about his prospects of having another role at a club. Not something he wants to think about for now, but great emotion from Ken, and we wish him all the best for the rest of his career, hopefully in footy again. But how about the guy next to him, Kate? Travis Boak, how much he's meant to this footy club, how he's carried himself with such poise through this year and his entire career, and what a career it was.
Yeah, 387 games now for the Port Adelaide Football Club, and an interesting sort of part of his career. In 2012, we all know he had that decision to go to Geelong, ultimately showed so much loyalty to Port Adelaide, stayed there, and he's just been a warrior for them. It was great to see the scenes last night, the number 10 at the end of the goal square at one end, and just the amount of respect that he has, not only from his teammates, from the fan base, but you can also tell from the opponents as well. He is one of the players that's probably held in the highest of regards from opponents, and he deserves all of the praise that he gets. Such
a strong family connection as well to Victoria at the time for Travis Boak, and Ken, I think, said post-game that without Boak there would be no Port Adelaide Footy Club, so what a career it was, and great to see him being honoured. In the other change rooms, Damien Hardwick wasn't as happy with his side. He wasn't happy with the umps, a 33-16 free kick count, but it was the way that it played out that he had a bit of an issue with.
Oh, I thought the umpires got caught up in the emotion of the game. It can happen.
What was the information?
Well, asking the wrong bloke the wrong question. Maybe ask the umpiring department.
From Dimmer's launch zone to Kate's.
Yeah, well, I just want to identify that I was watching most of the press conference and was waiting for Dimmer to make the comment because he has this tendency, and he was great all the way through, and it was the last question that he answered where he gave that answer around the holding the ball and the issues that he had with the umpiring department. Look, for me, and he did identify this earlier, but it's a bit of a cop-out. We've said so many times on this program that a equal free kick count does not mean that the game was officiated well. Yep. These are the holding of the ball decisions. Yes, it was 12-1. My takeaway from that is Port were more hungry. You look at this, they are laying tackles. It's 2 and 3 players putting pressure on the ball carrier. They went after Matt Rowell all night. They made it really difficult for them. I think it was things like dropping marks, poor decisions with ball in hand. They gave away 5 50-metre free kicks. For me, that had far more bearing on the result last night than the umpiring. And if you look at that as a coach, surely you look at 12-1 holding the balls and you think maybe we could have had more attack on the player. Maybe we needed to pressure them as much as they were pressuring us, and we didn't turn up as well as the opposition did last night.
Big response, hopefully, for Suns fans, and heading into Wednesday night, of course, which it looks like their season will be on the line against the Bombers. Let's go to Marvel Stadium, where Adelaide, they clinched the minor premiership, but only just 13 points, and the Roos, to be honest, were in it until the final moments there. The big question for the Adelaide Football Club now is how do they replace Isaac Rankin, who is out of the final series, unless they take the long road to the grand final with the 4-match ban for a homophobic slur. Kate?
Yeah, so the players that played that role a little bit, Peatling pushed forward a little bit more than we've probably seen. He ended up kicking the 3 goals. Billy Dowling, which we just saw, that was his first game of the year. He kicked a couple of goals. Zach Taylor as well hit the scoreboard with a goal. Obviously, none of these guys can probably replace Rankin the way that we're talking. He's someone that's essentially pretty hard to replace in the role that he plays, but you think those couple of guys are probably playing some different roles and will be playing in a little bit more forward half. You think James Peatling is the natural replacement to float forward, especially considering he kicked the 3 goals this afternoon.
Looked good today, Peatling. It's going to have to be a bit of a money ball set up for the Crows leading into the finals, and that's been, I guess, their MO all year with guys like Josh Worrell and Mark Keane stepping up. But the midfield, without Rankin, it's going to hurt them, and the last 2 weeks probably hasn't been their best as it is when you look at the way they've played against Collingwood and North Melbourne, the difference in the numbers.
Yeah, for me, so North Melbourne are pretty good from clearance. It's an area that Adelaide are ranked 12th at in the competition. They got dominated at clearance. For me, it was the scores that they conceded as well from that source. North Melbourne were really able to capitalise on that. So a little bit of a concern for me going into finals. I think Adelaide are still sitting in a really nice position. Obviously, they're firing on all cylinders, but their midfield is something that is a little bit susceptible, and we know some of the teams that they're coming up against, the powerhouses that are through the midfield for them. So just a little bit of a watch heading into the final series for me, but they absolutely deserve to be top spot on the table. I think they've been the most consistent team all year. Their defence have been really well drilled. Interesting to note, though, that was just the 3rd time this season that they've given up 100 points. It it was against North Melbourne, who will finish 16th on the ladder. So just a watch through that midfield for me, Xander.
And just on the midfield, if you have a look at the leading disposals, there was Sam Berry with 24, who's really come into his own the last few weeks. Rory Laird, 23. Dawson, 23, 19 for Worrell. They've never been big accumulators at Adelaide, but it's interesting to see the makeup of that midfield heading into September. Speaking of midfielders, there'll be a couple of maybe sleepless nights for these guys. I would think both would be probably okay, but let's have a look at Rory Laird. This off the ball bump there. He's lucky he didn't collect his head, Kate.
Yeah, agree. I think he's fine. He will be fine, but if he cops blank in the head there, he is in a lot of trouble. This one for me, though, this one might be looked at a little bit more closely. It's Jake Saligo on Sherry, but the arms are pinned and there is that little bit of a rotation, and we know early on they were the ones that they were really keen to stamp out with the sling tackles. I don't know, just a bit of a watch. I think the MRO will look at that one pretty closely. The positive was Tristan Sherry plays out the rest of the game. We know the outcome does have an impact on that. So just one to keep an eye on.
We've seen a couple of his teammates get done for tackles like that as well, and he's a very important player, Jake Saligo too. Let's go to the MCG, where Geelong made light work of Richmond. It's what most would have expected. The margin in the end was probably flattering for the Tigers as the Cats put the cue in the rack at three-quarter time. There are a lot of offensive weapons, there are a lot of midfield weapons, and I guess that's what we focus on most of the time. But it's a defender who is our Saturday star for an incredible performance at the G.
Yeah, it's Tom Stewart, and this is probably one that's a little bit cumulative as well. And he had 23 disposals, 9 marks, 9 intercepts, and we all know the trouble he had earlier in the year with the PCL injury that he's been sort of carrying, but you can feel like the last 6 weeks, Tom Stewart is back to some of his best football. I think for them to go deep in September, now finishing in the top 2 in a really good spot, but this guy is going to have a big say in September football for the Cats. Their defence is looking really well drilled, really well set up, but we know how much of a defensive and attacking weapon this player can be in Tom Stewart. And I think if you're a Geelong fan, you're sitting at home really happy with where he's at, because you know what a weapon he can be to your team, both in defence and offence.
Now, much was made of Geelong's run home when we were talking about whether Jeremy Cameron could make the 100-goal mark and how they played a lot of weaker opponents. They've played 6 straight teams that are in the bottom 10. They've lost their last 2 against top 8 opponents. And when we have a look at the fixture at large through the season, because it was tougher in the first half of the season for the Cats, but they probably have, all things considered, had one of the softer draws for the year.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really say all the Geelong Football Club and Fremantle as well, who have had 2 matchups in the top 8 of those doubles, sorry, top 9, because we're going top 9 because there have been 9 very competitive teams this year. But all you can do as those 2 football clubs is play the teams that you get the chance to play. And they have done that. They've taken care of the teams that they've played. They're finished in the top 2 now. And that's all they can do. If you look at the more difficult fixtures, probably the fact that the Lions are the reigning premiers probably gives them the right to play the most in there, but it has probably cost them that ability to finish top 2 with the losses that they've seen on the way there. But yeah, ultimately all you can do is play the opponents that you're fixtured to. They haven't had the best of records against those teams. I think you were saying their last couple of games against top 8 sides they've dropped, but I thought the method in which they won last week against the Sydney Swans, I was concerned with their draw on the way home and whether they'd be primed for finals. Their ability to wear down the Swans for a half and then really flex their muscle in the second half showed to me that they are a side to absolutely not take lightly for that back half of the draw that they had, because they are still, for me, one of the best teams in the competition.
Now, the Tigers got smashed in the first half, but some positives that they came back in the second. And one positive throughout the whole day was Josh Gibcus. He returned after missing a year and a half of footy through various injuries. He was subbed out with 7 touches halfway through the third quarter. Geez, he doesn't look happy about it, does he?
No, when I first saw this, I thought potentially he was subbed out with yet another injury, and my heart sank for him. But just subbed out tactically is the confirmation from the Richmond Football Club. But you can see, obviously, first game back, 527 days since he's played football. He missed all of 2023 with a really difficult hammy, then did his ACL round 1 of 2024. So really good signs to see him back out there. Yes, didn't finish the game because he was subbed out, but you just breathe a sigh of relief that he's gotten through unscathed.
To be honest, as a Richmond supporter, you'd look at that and go, in a dead rubber, you're that filthy to not be out there. Shows what a competitor Josh Gibcus is and why he showed such promising signs early in his career. Speaking of competitors, we've spoken about the Dogs and Freo being the most competitive matchup of this round. And it takes us to our Amy Clangers, where Sam Naismith, the development coach and the ruck coach, and Jeff Valentine, the head of development for Freo, have had a mare. They've gone on a scouting mission. They've come over to Melbourne early to take all the notes at Western Bulldogs training, and they've been caught out, Kate, and kicked out the door by assistant coach Daniel Pratt.
Yeah, well, that was after he changed into his, I think, a little bit less conspicuous outfit, but you probably don't want to send the tallest guy there to stand in the way. If we have a look, this was a photo that was taken pre-change, and it's pretty obvious that he's there and he sticks out like a sore thumb, so probably not the right guy to send.
No, probably not the right guy to send. 206 centimetres, and he was playing AFL last year. He's probably played against these guys. He's got the tats going on. I've been told by journalists that were there that he actually sat in the cafe for about 20 to 30 minutes before they walked outside and sat front row of the stand there.
I mean, the words are open training, so it's open to anyone. If you want to go, you can go.
Yeah, no, well,
Good
exactly.
pick up from the Bulldogs, though, to get rid of them pretty quickly.
Speaking of guys...
we want to give a shout-out to one of our biggest fans.
We do. Who looked like he was also having a bit of a tough time.
He was having a tough time, so he appeared on the Tag podcast, but we got a sneaky little shout-out. Have a listen.
The first time I've been to AFL headquarters. This is the home of my favourite show of the round so far. And you do this to me.
Well, Broden, we're big fans of you as well, and we wouldn't treat you like that
Absolutely
at the round
not.
so far, would we?
No, not at AFL headquarters again. You can come back and we would welcome you with open arms, Broden.
Let's go over to the West. Sydney made light work of the Eagles in the second half there. The Eagles were pretty competitive in the first. They've now slumped to the worst record in AFL history. 1-22 for the season. A couple of shining lights, but this second half was a reminder of just how far off the pace they are as a side.
Yeah, and I think it showed also how good Sydney can be. They kicked 13 goals to 1 in the second half. It was very close up until that point, and then just able to really get on top of the game. Buller kicked 3, Papley kicked 3, Blakey went forward in the second half and kicked a couple of goals as well. Errol Goulden was really good. 36 disposals, 648 metres gained and 2 goals. We see Blakey kicking the second of those goals there. But for me, it was what Errol Goulden had to say after the game that was quite pointed. He said the game was really reflective of their season. They took till half-time and a spray from Coxie for them to really kick into gear. And then they came home and showed how good the football is that they can play. But he was really disappointed, really flat that their season is over. And I think it just showed how hungry they are still to be a successful football club there and how disappointed they are with how the season played out.
And the telling sign as well that Errol wouldn't have said himself is how much they're relying on him. 36 and a goal, like you say, to get them kick-started. And that was the tail of the back half of their season when he came back from that broken ankle. Let's have a look at, a lot's been said about Sydney and the hangover from the grand final and the Demons. Teams typically, if we have a look at the graphic here, don't do that well after they get smashed in a grand final the next year. Only 2 sides have made the semi-final at best, and no one's really gone back to summit or get close to footy's Everest. But the Swans managed to get there 2 years later. Twice they get back to the grand final. And would you say that the signs we've seen in the back half of this season suggest that they could be right up there in 2026?
Yeah, I would agree. I think obviously we see their form to bounce back a couple of years later, and this was the big talk coming into the season. Can Sydney break this curse? Clearly they haven't been able to. They will finish 10th. But for me, they've lost 3 games post-bye. That was a close one to the Western Bulldogs. The GWS Giants, they competed for a half, and the Giants were able to just get away from them in the second half. And then they competed well last week with Geelong for a half and then ultimately couldn't get the job done. But for me, I think there have been real positive signs since Errol Goulden came back, since they've sort of adjusted to the way that Dean Cox wants to coach this football team. And I think if you're a Sydney Swans fan, there's a lot of positivity heading into next year.
34-point win for the Blues at the MCG over Essendon to finish their 2025 campaign. They're likely to lose Tom de Koning. They're probably likely to lose Jack Silvani as well. And it's going to be a tumultuous few weeks as the exit meetings pan out. One thing, though, in the last few weeks that Blues fans can sort of tip their hat to and be pretty happy about is the emergence of Francis Evans, who may well have earned himself another contract.
Well, he's earned himself a new nickname as well, Frank the Tank, obviously. 19 disposals, 12 score involvements, 5 tackles, 3 goals. He's kicked now 9 goals in his past 3 games. And you talk about players that they might lose. This is someone they should not lose. They've been screaming out for a quality small forward, and he's shown in the last few weeks that he is that. His kicking that was on display on Thursday night was pinpoint accurate, and SSP signing at the start of the year offered this man a contract because he has shown how worthy he is to your football club, especially in the front half.
Now let's have a look ahead to Sunday. The painting, the masterpiece is almost complete. There's just these final moments left, and then of course next week on the Wednesday with the Gold Coast Suns. But GWS St Kilda will kick things off. The Giants, unless they win by 150 points, will probably sit at about 6 spots. But there it is, Western Bulldogs and Freo. The do or die, the first elimination final. Whoever wins plays, whoever doesn't probably does not make September action. Brisbane and Hawthorn as well to shape the top 4. Keeping these games on the screen here. Kate, 4 tips, who do you like?
Going the Giants, the Dogs, the Lions and the Suns. What about yourself, Xander?
I'm going to go the Giants, the Dogs. I'm going with Hawthorn, and I think Dimmer will get the Suns over the line up at People First Stadium for them to play their first ever final series. What a sight that would be. What a September we're set for. And we'll have all the action as well on the round so far through the final, so make sure you stay tuned on Saturday nights and Sunday mornings for the full recaps. Until then, that's been the round so far for the final home and away round of the season in round 24. Thank you for joining us. Of course, all of this thanks to our friends at Amy.